Hey everybody, Brian Von Vier here, back at it again with another set of D&D stories. Today we've got which of your characters was your favorite character that you've played, and why, Part 2. I have a few, probably too many characters that I've come up with, but my favorite that I have played was Akari Ni, a human way of shadow monk who wore simple clothes and wrapped her chest in bandages and had extremely long, like almost down to her feet, white hair that she kept in a ponytail. When she was 4 years old, an odd mark or symbol appeared on her right hand, and upon seeing it, her father quickly gathered her up and took her to a remote location high in the mountains, full of lush red-leafed oak trees. There, she learned to survive and grew quite strong and agile while her father taught her everything that he could. She would eventually leave the mountain's safe haven after accidentally killing her father and setting fire to their home with the hidden power of her mark. Armed with what little she knew of the outside world and the remaining instructions from her father from his dying moments, she set out determined to either figure out the secret behind the mark or get rid of it permanently due to the pain it had caused her. I loved role-playing her. She was shy and generally tried to keep to herself, and was known for running on the tops of branches near the party to avoid being seen, often traveling mostly using the Shadow Step ability. For whatever reason, the DM had decided prior to my making the character that the sun for the world was dimmer than most, and thus counted as dim light for most of the year. I don't know, ask them. For the first few sessions, all seemed fairly normal until the barbarian of the party, who was a slimmer elf, rather than your normal beefy meathead, though he was still stupid and still strong, went on an insane rampage because somebody stole their father's sword after they chose to sleep under a cart in the middle of the street instead of inside the inn. We needed to arrive at the train station within an hour, otherwise we would have to trek to the capital by foot. So Akari did the only thing she could think of, grabbed a hold of the barbarian friend and hoisted him onto her shoulders and started carrying him. Must be said that while she had a 15 in strength, he had a 19. Also, they had only known each other for about 6 days. When the guards came over to investigate the disturbance, she managed to convince them that he was insane, and they needed to get on the train to the capital to get treatment for him. The guards helped by chaining up the barbarian, loading him onto the train, and strapping him into a seat. The barbarian would then spend a lot of their time plotting their revenge, but no matter what happened, she pretty much always was able to beat him in any strength and dex-based checks. Over the course of the campaign, she chained, tied, dragged, carried, and restrained the barbarian numerous times whenever he started to lose his temper over something irrelevant. She had kind of a no-nonsense way of looking at things, and almost sold the barbarian after he tried stealing from her. But by far my favorite moment, and the thing that she was most known for, was the crowning jewel of it all. While traveling on a main road heading towards the mountains to seek out a cult hideout, important to note we were in a world with two main kingdoms, the Empire and a monstrous land that hated humans for hurting them, we were approached by a military patrol of orcs. Akari immediately pulled up her hood and dashed into the tall grass before they got too close to avoid causing unnecessary conflict. If only I knew then. After a quick conversation which involved the barbarian claiming to be a high-ranking general in front of the general, the tide soon turned into a battle that resulted in us fleeing to a nearby town. Thinking we had gotten away, we settled into the inn, and eventually that same patrol stepped into the bar. One stealth check later, nat 20, Akari was nowhere to be seen. The drunk barbarian started up the conversation once again, resulting in his capture. This happened a lot to him. I then set out to try to free him. The patrol had set up camp in a clear spot near the center of the small town. What happened next can only be described as the mass hanging of all the soldiers in the area. Akari strangled some and put them in barrels, bamfed onto roofs, and used ropes to hang others inside of silent spells. A lot of choking people. The best part was all the patrons of that inn had a perfectly clear view to the carnage as Akari expertly took out all the guards and soldiers. Once she had freed the barbarian, they turned to head back to the inn as if nothing happened. They were met with horrified looks from the patrons, too scared to come outside and meet what was to them the first human they had ever seen strangling everything she came across. We quickly left. Funnily enough, we were actually sent by the ruling leadership of the Monster Kingdom and were employed by them mostly due to the divine connection Akari's mark had with their main goddess. So when they found out about it, we entered into a long, exasperated discussion where Akari was told to refrain from choking his soldiers, and we were given a high rank to avoid that kind of situation again. Not bad. My original plan was to make her use a dagger or claws, but after that incident, I went all in on making her a strangling monster who would just jump onto people, gouge out their eyes, and strangle them. She had quite the reputation. Most games I DM have the same magic shop in them. Learning a special door knock pattern triggers a spell that turns any door into a portal to the Emporium, where anything you could possibly want is available. The moment you enter, the shopkeeper descends upon you. Their race, gender, identity, name changes between visits, but what stays consistent is they are the most obnoxious used car salesperson I can portray. Never learns a customer's name, just refers to them as my favorite customer. If multiple people are shopping, whomever is moving towards a purchase at that moment is the favorite. All others are ignored until they mention making a purchase, at which case they instantly are given the title. Consistently mentions how paper thin their margins are and how the party is robbing them. All items are at minimum 30% markup, and will often throw in a gift to seal the deal, which will be a magic item that would be useful if not for the fact it has 3 charges that don't recharge, so on and so forth. The shopkeeper is terrible, and my party loves hating them more than most of my big bad evil guys. A current character of mine that I'm obsessed with is Jasper Ray, a phantom rogue. I love him because if you try to describe him on paper, he seems like an utter bastard. But in reality, he's a decent guy. On paper, he's a thief, a con man, and a killer. He makes his living stealing from people, tricking and lying to them, and rarely killing them in either self-defense or very rarely for coin. Nearly unrepentant, aside from the killing, he takes joy in his work. It's really the only way he's ever lived. He's just good at being bad. And he's a handsome devil too. Off paper, he's fiercely loyal to his 3 friends that form the rest of his team, the 4 of them stealing and running cons all through the city. A majority of Jasper's share of the money actually goes back into the general funds for the team. He sneaks it in there so the others don't know. He does most of what he does to help them out, and he only wants what's best for them. In fact, he'd walk right into hell and back for them. And considering I'm using him for Descent into Avernus, he may very well have to. My favorite character was in a D&D alternate universe, not homegrown, but used a different role system. Same concepts. My warrior stats were rolled up using D100. My other stats were pretty good, but my dex roll was 100 on a D100. By this game's rules, I was allowed to roll for bonus and ended up with dex of 140. This meant, among other things, that I got 2 aimed attacks per turn or 3 attacks if none were specifically aimed. If I aimed an extra strong swing with a sword, I had a 98% chance to hit and about a 50% chance to critically hit. Sometime early in the campaign, I picked up an enchanted +2 one-handed longsword. In that game system, I could add levels indefinitely. In our 3-year campaign, I reached level 29. Past a certain point, I became almost impossible to defeat in single combat. Even at that level, there was still the dreaded critical miss. Ugh. I eventually abandoned him because there was nothing new to do with him, and converted to a sorcerer of a sect totally opposite that of all other party members. But they needed me because I was the only one who knew how to get past the guards at the party's next quest. Kersalian, my war priest, has lived through 3rd edition, 3.5, and now 2 iterations of 5th edition. I have made him an eternal soul that remembers all his previous lives. His current iteration for 5th edition was at the Sword Saint of Bane's Reach, his created kingdom that came about when we took over a town in the Princes of the Apocalypse. He was then respawned as a 75-year-old grizzled fighter in the Avernus adventure. All his party thinks he's crazy when he speaks about how he used to be a priest of Ouijas who preached heresy and later became a high priest. Then he's been the Hand of Bane for years, killed 3 times and raised by Bane himself, given sainthood in the Church of Bane, and then thrown down yet again. He's gone from level 1 to 11, then level 1 to 8, then level 1 to 20, and lastly, so far, 1 to 11. He'll be back again. My favorite character was not from D&D, but it's still my greatest character. Hadaward Kennedy, famous science researcher, fiction writer, and kinda crazy eldritch evil worshipper. He was one of the best characters because, behind his wise and knowledgeable outside, he had a crazy scientist mentality, complete with evil laughter and shit. He's also a World War I veteran. The campaign we played was based loosely on the Cthulhu mythos, but everything about my character was entirely made up by myself. From his backstory to the deity he worships, Ouroboros, a swirling mess of spiraling tentacles that wore a broken mask and appeared to him in reflections like water and glass. It also granted him powers, which were the busted part of him. Since none of us fully knew how to use the system we were playing, we kinda exploited some things a bit. My character's ability was to bring back to life distorted versions of dead animals, and I used biological sciences as the modifier for the rolls. And in this system, we can buy the level of the modifiers with the XP we gain. So my big brain moment kicked in, and I literally just upped the modifier of biological sciences until it couldn't miss unless it was a nat 1. This became so bad that the final boss against Nyarlathotep wasn't so much a boss fight as a complete destruction of the big bad evil guy. I just tossed my mutated gator, squid, and chicken-turned dragon at him, and even helped my teammates defeat the evil mage that was giving them a trouble, with my gator biting him on the balls. Easily my best character. By the end of the campaign, he even presented the father of a dead PC with a cute pug gator. Hey everyone, Brian here, making sure to check in after the vid. If you liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more notifications on whenever we post or when we go live, which we sometimes do. If you like a little bit more interesting stories, or sometimes just like a one-off hit, then come on over to our secondary channel, Riptovia, and if you have a story to tell us that we would like us to read out loud to you guys and gals and bring life into some madness, go ahead and do so on r/MrRipper. Links are in the description below. Same goes for if you want to come pay me a visit, Brian Von VA, over on Twitch, where I stream games, or on YouTube, where I post a lot of different voice acting videos. All the love, everybody. Please make sure to stay safe, happy, and healthy out there, and I just want everyone to know that you can do it. Whatever the hell it is, you've got this. But you have to believe in yourself, you have to be smart and kind, and you have to just make that first step. Whatever it is you're wanting to do, take the first step and do it. Don't regret it, just keep going. It's for your benefit. The world is your oyster, nobody else's. It's all for you. All the love, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.